At 7 years old, I was molested for the first time by one of my cousins that I didn't even know that well, but she ended up like staying over our house for the summer for a week or two. You know, she was just super cool to me. She had like all the DS games, the Game Boys, everything. And whenever I asked if like I could play with it, she'd be like, yeah, if you want to play, you have to do this. And I never really understood it, but I kind of just went with it. At 9 years old, I got molested again by a guy, by an older cousin. And he was the one that introduced me to, at 9 years old, he was always like that cool older brother that I always wanted. So I kind of just went with the flow, and you know, every time I would sleep over, he'd turn on that TV, boom, boom, every single time, right? One time, he came over my house. I remember my uncle saying, yo, it's time to go. And I remember begging him, like, yo, can you sleep over? Can you stay over? He was like, okay, but if you want me to sleep over, you have to do this. And I remember thinking, like, okay, whatever. And, you know, whatever happened. So growing up, I just had so much resentment and anger that I started going through severe depression and anxiety to the point where, you know, I couldn't be in a group with more than 5 people without getting like a severe anxiety and panic attack. So it was specifically like 2 months before I gave my life to the Lord where I started drinking, because I felt so empty inside. And I was just looking for anything to fill that void. And once my sister got saved, she would always invite me to Sunday service or Friday night youth events, and I would always tell her no. But it got to a point where, you know, she met this guy and she would kind of stop asking me, and that made me curious. I was like, yo, now that you stopped asking me, I want to go. One Sunday service, there was baptisms after that Sunday service, and I remember staying and I watched every single baptism. I heard their testimony and it just touched my heart. When that was all over, I remember the pastor saying, there's someone in here who wants to give their life to the Lord, but you keep pushing him away. You keep saying you'll get saved later, you'll get saved later. But the time is now. He has you here for a reason. I felt so convicted because I knew he was talking about me, but in my mind I'm like, okay, maybe he's not talking about me. There's a lot of people in here. I remember walking out, and I remember pastor coming to me and tapping me on my shoulder, and he looked me in the eye and he said, how are you? And I was like, oh, dang, because I just knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm good. And then I remember he walked away, and I just felt this tug, and I knew it was time. And I went to pastor and I said, the man you were talking about is me. And he just smiled, and we did the prayer, and you know, I gave my life to the Lord, and it was beautiful to see that the first thing the Lord attacked was the molestation. And you know, he would give me dreams of my cousins. He would give me dreams, and I would pray, and he would tell me that these are conversations that need to be had. These are people you need to forgive. That's exactly what I did, and you know, and I looked her in the eye, and I apologized for everything, and I just felt this huge, like, just lift come off of me.